Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to Joy News today. I am Emefa Akosi Adeti. The bulletin is live from our studios here in Kokomlemle, Accra. We're also live on DSTV channel 421 and Go TV channel 125. Coming up this afternoon, Office of Special Prosecutor to file charges against senior officials at the National Petroleum Authority in 1.3 billion Ghana cedis suspected corruption case.
OSP, before the end of June, would file criminal charges against the first batch of the perpetrators and complicit oil marketing companies and their officials.
And also later in the bulletin, Ghana records 26 new Mpox cases, bringing total cases to 45. More on Joy News today. And as well, the trauma remains fresh. Words of some survivors of June 3, 2015's flood and fire disaster.
My fellow mom, brother, uncles, everybody lying. One was lying here, three were lying here. When you go down there, it wasn't easy.
Dead people?
Yes.
We've got details as they accuse authorities of doing little to prevent a recurrence. We've got these plus business, sports, showbiz in this package. Do stay with us. Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible. Thank you for staying with us this afternoon. First, the Office of the Special Prosecutor is set to file criminal charges by the end of June against senior officials of the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, and oil marketing companies. The charges related to an alleged 1.3 billion corruption scheme that reportedly took place between 2022 and 2024. The investigation, launched in February 2025, also implicates former NPA CEO Mustafa Hamid in an embezzlement of funds from the Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund. According to Special Prosecutor Ghc1.3bn, investigators have identified properties believed to have been acquired with stolen funds.
The OSP investigation has revealed that between 2022 and 2024, some high-ranking and other officials of NPA devised and implemented a corrupt scheme of using public office for profit through threats, intimidation, coercion, suggestions, bribery, and inordinate regulatory duress to obtain, for their personal benefit, large sums of money from oil marketing companies and other entities under their statutory regulatory, licensing, oversight, and monitoring mandates in the petroleum downstream industry. As at the close of business on 30 May 2025, the OSP had uncovered, through tracing and trailing, an amount of 280,516,127 cedis and 19 pesos, being proceeds of the corrupt scheme, some of which has been used by the perpetrators to acquire identified and traced apartments, suites, houses in country and abroad, 22 fuel haulage trucks, and the incorporation, acquisition, and operation of oil marketing companies to compete with the oil marketing companies they were regulating. The OSP, before the end of June, would file criminal charges against the first batch of the perpetrators and complicit oil marketing companies and their officials. Upon filing, we will brief you in detail in respect of who did what, who acquired what, and what has been recovered.
Well, we'll bring you those who are likely to be prosecuted a bit later, but let's engage Nana Ejebafoewa, NP for Mensah Southern, as well, a lawyer. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. First, what's your general reaction towards this charges that the OSP is about to start, and then as well on matters arising yesterday. We'll go into Ken Oforiatta shortly, but let's start with the NPA. What's your general reaction?
I think that, I would rather say that this is a statutory mandate of the OSP to update the general public of work that it is doing. I am unsure whether the update should come with such depth in terms of information. That said, when you are given such an update, especially coming on the back of previous updates, progress, we like to see progress. The last update was in February, where he said, for instance, he was chasing people for 1.3 billion cedis at NPA. At this point, when you are given another update and you are not speaking in terms of suspicion, the progress people would like to see, right, is that we have even charged them or something. That's not what we are getting. Now, when you cast your mind back, you have had similar updates in respect of other cases which the OSP was handling. Now, with the update that he gave, you observe that some of those cases, he doesn't even talk about them anymore.
Okay.
What happened to LaBianca?
Before we go
before we
go to the other cases. So you say that because the OSP has the mandate, statutory mandate, to at least update the public, you're not sure the depth they should go. How much depth do you recommend they should go? And in one breath as well, you're concerned about they coming back and still saying nearly the same thing they said in February. Where shall I reconcile the two?
Let's be clear. I am saying that when you are given the path to work for and on behalf of the general public, and it is required that you update them, we want updates which is, progressive. I've asked questions about previous updates and where it ended up. I've asked, for instance, about LaBianca. I've asked about, there was various updates. And so I think that progressive updates are very necessary. I also think that being scanty with information, particularly with the update, may be helpful. May be helpful because we have seen cases, for instance, where the special prosecutor wasn't successful in its prosecution. For instance, we saw Cecilia Dapa, where the special prosecutor gave us several updates, very confident of crimes having been committed, only for the special prosecutor to come and say that after all the investigations he had done, it wasn't in its remit to do the prosecution, so it is sending the file to Yoko. You and I know that when you are seized with facts as a lawyer, right from the outset, you should be able to tell from preliminary investigation that it's within your remit or not. That is why sometimes when you go to the police station to make a complaint to the police that I've got this case and that case, even the police officer who might not be high-ranking, might not have the training of a lawyer, can sometimes tell you.
But you would agree.
Can sometimes tell you.
You would agree with me that during investigation there are strands of it, and so the OSP comes to gives an update and says that, well, following to the end of it, we're not the ones to prosecute, so we've forwarded the documents to Yoko. Will that be wrong at all?
It depends on the extent to which the OSP went before finding out. It depends. Every lawyer, ask every lawyer, once pieces of facts come before you, you could be in a position to put a preliminary judgment on it.
Do you not see a general overlap of Iyoko and OSP's job? Do you not see that at some point they intertwine? So it will not be surprising at all.
I can even tell you that I struggle to see why that matter should even go to Iyoko. On the facts. You understand? When somebody complains of missing funds, a public officer complains of missing funds in her home, right? Mm-hmm. And then that public officer reports people he or she suspects have stolen the money. Okay? Mm-hmm. These facts in and of itself may never, right, support any prosecution for corruption or corruption-related offense.
But are these the facts in which the OSP prosecuted?
MFA, if you allow me, if you don't allow me...
No, we work with time, of course. You know this is the bulletin. You know that's the bulletin.
When a call called me, I told that call, please, if you don't have time, I can't have this conversation.
I mean, of course, Mr. Bafo, you know that we can't have all the time. Let's, of course, please, yeah, but it's just we can make the salient points.
Okay, let's make progress. What I'm saying is that on the face of every fact, you should be able to tell whether it's within your mandate or it's not within your mandate. When you go to further investigations, right, before you come to that conclusion, right, it can be problematic because we have other state institutions responsible for fighting corruption in this country. And so when you are not sure from the outset, refer them to the police, which has a wider mandate. The police has a wider mandate to investigate every offense under the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. The OSP Act didn't take the power of the police from it.
Okay.
The Iyokos Act didn't take the power of the police from it. And so as a state agency, you don't wait. For instance, recently, the matter which was being investigated in Asante Achim involving a DC, he has been acquitted and discharged. You understand? That is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That from the outset,
you should, the OSP should be able to tell. Okay, stay with me and we'll come back. We'll bring you back home on the NPA matter where at least we have a little information, not into detail. And so by this point, I'll come back to you to ask whether the OSP should proceed or on the face of it, you think that it is not their mandate to continue with any form of investigation. But let's engage my colleague, Elton. Elton, so tell me, who are those caught in this NPA web? Elton, can you hear me?
Well, MFA, so what we are picking relates to what the OSP told the public in February 2025. And we are still working our sources to get confirmation to the names that the OSP said it was investigating in February 2025. And according to them, this alleged fraud, 1.3 billion Ghana cedi, took place between 2022 and 2024. And in the February 2025 news conference that the OSP undertook, it announced that it had launched an investigation into the former chief executive of the NPA, Mustafa Abdul Hamid, over his alleged involvement in the embezzlement of this 1.3 billion from the Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund. Now, we've been trying to understand what is going on because the OSP indicated yesterday that it was in the process of putting together its document to appear before court and charge these individuals. What we have picked is that these individuals who will be answering to this particular scandal, they are already aware of the action taken by the OSP, and they are holding themselves in readiness to appear in court to answer for their involvement in this 1.3 billion. Including now, the names that we are picking, unconfirmed yet. These are names that the OSP announced in February that it was investigating relating to this 1.3 billion. And these individuals are Jacob Amwa, who was the Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund coordinator. There's also Frida Tandov of the NPAs, and whether she is still a staff or has left NPA, and Wendy Ashon Newman, also an NPA staff as of February 2025. These names are the names that we are picking at. They are possible to be prosecuted in line with this 1.3 billion cedis that the OSP claims to have uncovered. It's also unclear who the OSP recovered the 280.5 million Ghana cedis from, and the properties that they announced that are traced, whose name these properties were traced to. The OSP says that it will provide more details in the coming days.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Elton. Mr. Balfour, if you are still with me, so far with this information, particularly on the NPA, because I recognize that every case is very different. What's your reaction so far? Do you think that it is still under the mandate of the OSP, or by now, on the face of it, he should be migrating the case to another investigative body?
My sister, you see, whoever is fighting corruption in Ghana should be given the support required. Because, you know, when people are voted into public office, they don't go there with their personal money. I was just telling a friend that if you don't know the money, if you don't know the money which is being misused or abused in public office, ask yourself where the difference between your gross salary and your net salary goes to. It goes to public office holders. And so we must support everyone fighting corruption, particularly where the person is doing it genuinely. I am not sure of the entirety of the facts and the evidence before the OSP in respect of the NPA matter. He alone has the facts. However, I will not hesitate to draw conclusions because of the antecedents we have experienced with the OSP. So I will not hesitate, you know, I will hesitate to draw conclusions. Okay?
Okay.
I would like to see how these things pan out.
Okay.
Because the antecedent, like I was pointing out, show that we saw Sicily Adapa being embarrassed throughout this country, only for the OSP to finish and say that it is not within its mandate. We had La Bianca, right, also being handled in a certain manner, only for the OSP to finish and nothing came out of it. And the woman died sadly. You know, when you are going through investigations, I'm a lawyer and I accompany people who go through investigations all the time. It can be very, very, very tortuous. And so, you know, people can suffer all sort of depression and so on and so forth from it.
Okay.
And that is why I have always been insistent on making sure we protect people's fundamental human rights and push for the adherence to due process of the law.
Okay. Another point I'd want you to stay with me for this afternoon is that letters from the Mayo Clinic obtained by Joy News reveal that former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is undergoing treatment for prostate cancer. The special prosecutor yesterday reactivated Mr. Ofori-Atta's name on the wanted list after his lawyers failed to produce him for interrogation by the agreed June 2 deadline, facing multiple corruption allegations, including those linked to the National Cathedral saga. Mr. Ofori-Atta has informed the Special Prosecutor's Office that he requires more time at the clinic for surgery scheduled June 13. However, Special Prosecutor Ghc Ejabin says no medical evidence has been provided to confirm that Mr. Ofori-Atta cannot travel. Now, I've got my colleague here to give us a bit of clarity on that letter that we have just received.
That letter has since gone viral on social media, indicating what perhaps may be the actual circumstance of Mr. Ofori-Atta. The special prosecutor yesterday disclosed at a news briefing that Mr. Ofori-Atta was battling with cancer. He was not specific, but this letter that we've obtained from the medical center in the US indicates that there is some scheduled further procedure that Mr. Ofori-Atta would have to undergo. The claim here in this letter, and we're saying it's a claim because we haven't contacted Mr. Ofori-Atta as to whether or not he will ascertain that indeed he's suffering from prostate cancer. But that's what this document is alluding to, indicating that they need further time to examine him and to take him through that medical process by one Dr. Pasam of India that will carry out that process on June 13. That is the date, which is way beyond the June 2 deadline that the Office of the Special Prosecutor had given. So if the letter is anything to go by, it appears that Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta has some more processes or procedures medically to undergo that is the claim in relation to what the document says is prostate cancer. But we, of course, have to establish from Mr. Ofori-Atta himself, who is now at large, of course, because the OSP is not able to reach him. We haven't been either, successful either in reaching him. I'm sure through his lawyers we'll get some further explanation and also get to hear from the experts on that. But that is what we're hearing so far.
I would have brought our viewers
the
video of what Ghc being said, but if you can just give us exactly what he said yesterday, particularly about that.
So basically, the OSP has been making that argument that there are many people suffering various conditions or varied conditions in terms of health, yet they are able to present themselves for interrogation, even at the police headquarters or wherever it is that the security agencies may want you to appear. His point is that as of now, there is no clear evidence stating that Mr. Ofori-Atta cannot walk or perhaps cannot take that trip from the US to Ghana, Accra, just for some brief interaction with the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and that he would have to determine the pace of that interaction. But I need to also state that in the last few minutes, the OSP himself has also put out a letter. Again, another statement I should indicate, pointing out that this said letter that we're referring to has not been brought to his attention. So if it's indeed the case that Mr. Ofori-Atta has to go through some surgeries in relation to prostate cancer, then bring the further evidence in terms of the letter that you're circulating through the lawyers and on social media before my attention. When that is presented before me, then I'll make further pronouncements. So he's issued another statement clarifying that position. That's the latest we have on this.
Thank you so much, Blessed Suga. Now, before I come to you, Mr. Balfour, lawyers of Ken Ofori-Atta say the special prosecutor lacks the technical expertise to determine if the medical letter contains sufficient grounds for his inability to travel. Lawyer Frank Davies says Ghc ought to focus on his legal pursuit. I'll bring you what he said, but let me still engage you. What do you make of this purported letter, the response of the special prosecutor, in fact, and what he also said yesterday about he thinking that it's not enough for Ken Ofori-Atta to say that he's unable to travel into the country? What's your position?
To be fair, there had been some pressure on Mr. Ghc to give an update in respect of the Ken Ofori-Atta matter in the public domain. That said, the question that confronts all of us is whether or not the approach taken by Mr. Ghc should be before. My simple answer to it is no, and I have 3 reasons for that. The first is that even putting out details of Ken Ofori-Atta's health condition in the public domain is unethical as a lawyer. It's unethical, completely unethical. As a lawyer, you don't do that. It's enough to say that you have received information that he's unwell. But to go to the extent of giving details of his medical condition, which is very personal, right? For a person who is not even an accused, a person who you are yet to even charge, is condemnable and should not be repeated again. The second point is that Mr. Ghc is creating the impression that without interviewing Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, he cannot proceed against them. That then makes the case against Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta very problematic, because he has the right to even keep quiet before you. So if he keeps quiet and says he will not speak, then it would mean that you cannot even establish a prima facie case against him. That is why some lawyers are saying that if you think you have a case against him, then proceed. Right? You have not even charged him. Yesterday, the interview he granted, the press conference, he didn't even say he has charged him. And so it's very problematic.
He gave a chronological...
The third point, please,
okay,
allow me
make
to make the third point. The third point is that when the OSP was investigating the Airbus scandal, and when he finished investigating the Airbus scandal and he put out the report, in the report, the OSP stated that because of difficulties in bringing down Mr. Samuel Adam Mahama, the special prosecutor, the OSP, traveled outside of Ghana to engage him. That is indication or clear evidence that the OSP does not necessarily limit itself to invitation to persons before proceeding. It is well within its mandate. They have done it before, and there was no problem. And because of that, it was able to conclude its investigations in the Airbus scandal. What stops the OSP from going to see Ken Ofori-Atta if he desperately needs him to conclude his investigation?
Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Well, moving on, 26 new cases of Mpox have been confirmed in Ghana, bringing the total number of recorded infections to 45 since the outbreak began. The Ghana Health Service, in its update, explained that the surge is due to enhanced surveillance, active contact tracing, and increased public awareness. Key elements, the service says, are helping to promptly identify and isolate infections within the communities. I'll now bring you on your screen how the situation looks like. So we've recorded, the total recorded number is 45, and then we have not recorded any death yet, but we've got 2 who are on admission, and the new cases for us to arrive at that 45 would be 26 confirmed cases now. Let's see if we can get some updates from Dr. Joseph Oliver Kome. He is director of Ghana's Center for Infectious Diseases. Doc, I look forward to the day I'll engage you on Joy News today and say that we haven't recorded any new cases. But thank you for making time this afternoon. So you say that enhanced surveillance and contact tracing. And again, one of my favorite questions to ask you is that, are these cases in any way related?
Good afternoon, and thank you for your question, and good afternoon to all your listeners. When we talk about related, yes, some of our cases are related. Not all the cases are related. Remember, we said it's a contact disease. So for some of the patients, some of their relatives who are close contact have also come down with the illness. So those are the ones who say are related. Okay. If you are talking about whether the case in Accra is related to the case in Koforidua, then we will say no, they are not related.
Oh, okay. I mean, you say that's enhanced surveillance and contact tracing. This is how we're that's how we're able to find these new cases. This will mean that the persons who have been infected out there, which means if we still continue with the surveillance and then the contact tracing, we may be recording more numbers or new cases. What aren't we doing right as a people? Not for you as a health service, but for us as a people first.
The people are not doing anything untoward. Mpox has been around. The people didn't know about Mpox. The people now are having some education and some information about Mpox, get to the media. So the people are actually coming out to say, look at my lesion. What do you think it is? We take the sample and it turns out to be Mpox. What maybe we are not doing as a people generally, and I'm not limiting it to Mpox, is that we take certain things for granted. When you have a rash on your skin and you know you have a rash, the duty lies to you to make sure that you protect another person from getting into contact with that rash. Because that rash could be chickenpox, which is also very infectious. That rash could be Mpox, which is also infectious. That rash could be measles, which is also infectious. That rash could be TB, which is also infectious. So as much as possible, if somebody has TB, all of us say that the person should cover their cough, meaning you shouldn't cough into the air. When people are around, you cover your cough. The same way when you have a rash, it's important that you cover your rash. It's important that you try and limit contact with other people who may not have a rash. Protect the other person. We just all need to be a little more considerate about the other person. And once you have such a problem, maybe you get closer to the hospital and then you are sorted out. Okay. I think that's what we should all do.
Doc, for you as a service as well, are you challenged in any way? I acknowledge that you've mentioned increased surveillance, contact tracing and all of that, but are you challenged in any way? And are these numbers worrying?
No, the numbers are not worrying at all. We feel we should be seeing more cases because of the effort we are putting in. And I can say that at the moment, the service is not challenged in any way.
Okay. And currently, where is the hotspot? Still Accra or where?
When we speak about the hotspots, you mean regions that are reporting a lot of cases. Currently, it's always been Accra and the Western region reporting most of the cases.
Okay. Any special reason because of population or weather or anything?
Well, maybe it's because it started in those regions, and those regions are looking for the cases more than the other regions. So when the other regions also step up, I'm sure we will even up with time.
Thank you so much, Doc, for talking to us this afternoon.
You're welcome.
You're still watching Joy News today. Now, moving on, our interest is not to stay out of work, but to continue serving the people of Ghana. That is the call of the Brong-Ahafo chairperson of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Kingsley Osei-Safo, to the government. Mr. Osei-Safo warns government to avert the escalation of their agitation leading to industrial action by signing and implementing the agreed conditions of service from July 2024. Precious Somerville has more.
The 2025 International Nurses Day celebration in the Brong-Ahafo region at Sunyaye Sufufu allowed healthcare givers to deliberate on welfare issues and build capacity to improve the quality of healthcare delivery. The celebration on the theme Our Nurses and Midwives Are Future, caring for nurses and midwives strengthens economies, also saw the remembrance of the work of Florence Nightingale with a candlelight procession. Brong-Ahafo chairperson of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Kingsley Osei-Safo, bemoaned the poor working conditions fueling agitations on low payment, accommodation and lack of equipment and infrastructure, which he said negatively impacts healthcare services.
One aspect is our remuneration. We realize that financially nurses struggle and we have to be going for loans to survive. If this one, stakeholders pay attention to it, we will be able to be financially stable, and that will help us to provide the best of nursing care. One area is about accommodation. We therefore call on stakeholders to make accommodations available to help the individual to be able to provide services as and when needed.
He called on the government to implement the agreed conditions of service to avert industrial actions.
These are documents that have already been discussed and agreed and signed. It is just left with implementation. And then because of that, leaders put out this roadmap that starts from 2nd, that is Monday, 2nd June. And 2nd and 3rd, we have to put on red bands. 4th to 8th, we have to withdraw OPD services, and then from 9th, we will withdraw all services. We want to call on our employer that our interest is not to stay away from work. We want to continue to serve the people of Ghana. And therefore, they should come in, call our leaders to table, and then complete this signing of the condition of service.
Also, on this particular industrial action, I've got Precious Somerville joining us with more. Precious, so in your region now, what's it looking like for the Ghana Registered Nurses Association? Are they working?
Yes, as rightly said by the regional chairperson, Mr. Osei-Safo, per the roadmap, they are working up to today and tomorrow.
Precious, you want to position yourself well so I can hear you.
Some services, OPD services. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Precious. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm saying that they are working. They are working per the roadmap. They are working until tomorrow, up to on the 8th, that they intend withdrawing some services, including.
Oh, did I lose Precious? Precious, can you hear me?
Some OPD services, including primary health care services. Yes, if I can hear you. If you can hear me.
Yes, please proceed.
Yes, I'm saying that they are working until tomorrow, up to Sunday, that they intend withdrawing some services to press home their demands, and also to show that they really mean business, and they will intend carrying.
Well, what's the reaction of patients that have been admitted who are possibly?
Their roadmap until.
All right, I'll try and then reconnect with Precious, if not in this bulletin, but in our subsequent bulletin for update on that. But as you have heard, the nurses are still working up until tomorrow before they decide to want to go on that strike. We'll bring you updates from the Ahafo region. You won't stay with us. But you're watching Joy News today, and 10 years after fire and flood claimed more than 150 lives at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, residents in the area say they still live in fear. Some survivors say the June 3, 2015 trauma remains fresh, and a little has been done by authorities to prevent recurrence. According to them, poor drainage, indiscriminate dumping of waste, and the absence of a concrete disaster management plan continue to threaten lives, raising concerns about whether the country has truly learned from the tragedy. Joy News revisited the disaster scene and interacted with some survivors.
Today marks exactly 10 years since one of Ghana's darkest days, the June 3rd disaster, right here at Kwame Nkrumah Circle. So what you can see behind me is the GCB building. Right beside it was the filling station. There were other buildings. What I gathered here today is that this building you see right behind me is a building that they just recently put up. So the heavy rains that day caused a severe disaster. A lot of people might have closed from work around that time. Some were seeking for shelter and all that. At the filling station, the place that is barricaded, there was a sudden explosion, claiming more than 150 lives that day. Then what we can also recall is that more than 150 people were also injured, and some, around that same number, sustained major injuries. Now, a decade later, the scars still remain. Victims still seek justice. Families who lost their loved ones are still grieving because today marks exactly 10 years since this disaster happened. Most of them were waiting for their loved ones just to get back from work, some back from school, some wherever place that they went to just to get home safely. But unfortunately, they didn't make it.
Kofi Daniel, a survivor of the tragic flood and fire disaster that happened 10 years ago, shares what he saw, felt, and what he will never forget.
10 years ago, from morning to evening. I
was here 10 years ago, from morning till evening, and I witnessed everything. It was both rain and fire that clashed that day. The rain started in the morning and continued throughout the entire day.
Has enough changed since then? What is still being done? There's still floods in Accra. Even right in the main street, we still see floods whenever it rains on a main stretch.
These days,
it still floods when it rains, but not like it did 10 years ago. Now the water usually just reaches my leg level. The gutters are choked. Even though it rained only a little today, just look at the water on the street. The gutters really need to be fixed to prevent another flood.
Right here is exactly where the incident happened, where the explosion happened. I'm standing at this exact place where more than 100 people lost their lives. So you could still see the devastation after 10 years. You could still see there's still water. This place has been barricaded. It's under protection. No one is allowed to enter here. We had to beg the security to allow us to enter to have an idea of what actually transpired here 10 years ago. So that is where I presume the pumps should be. And the land, you can see that when it rained earlier today. So when it rains, the place gets flooded. So this is where the explosion happened. And you can see closer to the GCB building, it went up and it also affected the building up there. And the other buildings, as I said earlier, how it also affected them on the other side. It's more being done to make sure that these issues or these disasters doesn't happen again. 10 years on, share with us your thoughts on the journey so far.
Well, you're still watching Joy News today, and away from that, some traders at Cantonment Market are worried about their survival months after fire razed their stalls. Though support running into millions of cedis has coming, life has never been the same as they continue to count their losses. They are asking for loans to serve as a launch pad. There's more in this following report.
It's been well over 4 months since the incident happened. So we are here to find out from the traders how life has been for them.
For decades, the Cantonment Market has become the source of livelihood for families, playing an important role in the retail business. One threat it has been grappling with is fire. Yes, fire. It has literally become an annual ritual, forcing some traders to start life all over again. A number of traders at the market took loans from banks, while others started with years-long savings, but all gone with the fire. Mamesi, who sells second-hand clothing, says the fire in January this year has stopped business activity in its tracks, as some sellers are yet to return. Business has been very slow for a number of reasons. That include our customers not being aware that we have resumed. Well, the last deliveries I took are piled up and I have more than enough in stock, but want to know if I can recoup my capital. It hasn't been easy at all. Evelyn Sam's worry goes beyond the fire incident to losing her capital. This is because buyers demand reduction in prices due to performance of the cedi. We would have loved to sell it much cheaper than we do, but ask yourself, with our current situation, is that possible? Its true fares are down, but that's not enough for us to reduce prices of stock we took months ago. Well, it turns out that headquarters, also known as Kaye, have been impacted negatively after the fire. Abdullahi Azara struggles to make 50 cedis daily. Chairman of the traders, Reverend Upokwa Frey, is pleading with government and financial institutions to help them access soft loans.
But we haven't heard from any bank. Maybe some of our members will go to their bank and they will tell them, I said 2 or 3 people, we can support you with this. But for a bank to come to Cantonment to say boldly, come, we will give you, negligible interest loan. That one there, it will help us a lot, but we haven't heard from any bank.
Watching Joy News today, please stay for business updates.
Welcome back to Business here on Joy News today. My name is Winston Taki, and our first business story. The Bank of Ghana has announced a new set of regulatory measures targeted at interest charges on digital platforms, pricing of FX transactions, non-performing loans, and recapitalization of commercial banks in the country. Some of these new directives will take off from August 2025, while another set of these regulations will take effect from 2026, especially when it comes to capping non-performing loans of financial institutions at 10%. Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama announced this at Post-Monetary Policy Committee meeting with MDs and CEOs of commercial banks at the headquarters of the Bank of Ghana today.
Few issues in that area as well. We've noted a growing trend in the application of optional issuer fees, or what is called OIFs, when it comes to cross-currency card transactions. In principle, we recognize that these fees may reflect real costs. However, opaque pricing and limited disclosure have already begun to erode consumer trust and the integrity of payment systems. To this end, the Bank of Ghana will soon issue a directive, and the directive seeks to do a number of things. It seeks to address gaps, optional user fees when it comes to cross-currency card transactions, and we seek to cap these at 2%. Secondly, We will require the mandatory disclosure of all applicable OIFs to customers before a transaction is completed. Now, beyond this, we are also concerned about broader pricing practices that prevail in the sector. Indeed, we have received reports that some banks continue to apply interest charges on credit accounts that remain inactive. Even though they are inactive, some banks continue to apply interest charges, and this often results in cases where the accrued interest exceeds the original principal. Now, let me be clear, colleagues. Such practices are unacceptable and must end. They distort customer outcomes. They misrepresent the true profitability of lending portfolios, and they violate the principles of fair treatment and transparency. We expect all banks to review their pricing models and ensure that customer charges reflect ethical and commercially defensible standards.
Away from that, the prices of petroleum products have dropped below 12 cedis per litre at some fuel stations across the country as several oil marketing companies begin slashing pump prices. George Wiafe has more in this report.
Market leader Star Oil is selling a litre of petrol at 11 cedis 77 pesos. However, at some selected service stations, a litre is going for 11 Ghana cedis 57 pesos. The price quote marks some significant reduction from their initial price some 2 weeks ago. Allied last week announced that it has dropped the price of petrol to 12 Ghana cedis 15 pesos. The oil marketing firm has indicated that it could drop prices further depending on how the market responds to its price quotes. So, for many, it looks like we are in for some price competition among the oil marketing firms as they try to put themselves out as the preferred firm for the purchase of petroleum products by consumers in the country. It is not clear for now whether GOA will also move again to review prices at the pumps. The Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, in its June price outlook, revealed that one of the major reasons for this fresh round of reductions has basically to do with the cedi's appreciation against the US dollar. Some industry analysts have, however, argued that if this trend should continue in terms of the cedi's continuous appreciation against the US dollar, then we should expect more reductions at the pumps in the coming weeks.
Expect a trickle down of these effects basically across the nation. My name is Winston Taki. Up next, exports.
Time for sports on JN Today. My name is Haruna Mubarak. Now, later today at 7 p.m., Ghana's Black Queens will face Ivory Coast in an international friendly as they prepare for the upcoming Women's Africa Cup of Nations in July. The team's coach, Kim Las Bjorkegren, wants to use the friendly to improve their performance ahead of the continental event.
Preparation have been really good. Finally, some trainings and meetings together. We only had one before the first game, but now we have been together for a few days, so I think it will help, and I'm really, like always, looking forward to play again. Yeah, we'll do some small changes in how we play, and a couple of changes in the starting 11. We were thinking that we did a few good things, but we also learned from the game, and we think that we can create more chances. Even if we score 3 goals, we think we can create even more chances. We think that we can have more control of the game, So there will be some changes, yes. We felt that we were creating more chances, something where we talked about that we wanted to do, so that was a good thing. But we felt that we were a little bit, position-wise, not in the right spot for the build-up. So I think the build-up can be a little bit better. That have been a part of many meetings and also 2 trainings now. How we can play the ball forward more often, still keep it in the team, but be more dangerous and play it forward. There were too many times we were playing just outside of them, so that's one thing I hope is going to be better in the next game.
As your sports on GN today, my name is Haruna Mubarak. Showbiz comes up shortly. Please stay. Okay, you're welcome. It's a pleasure. Don't mention. Anytime.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to the Showbiz segment with me, Jacqueline and Sama Yabua. To our first story for today, he's no stranger to pain, but this time, Black Sharif is singing his way into the global playlist and Rolling Stone is here for it. Ghana's own Kweku the Traveler hitmaker has called a major nod as the song Sin City featuring Nigerian street pop star Say Vibes has made it onto Rolling Stone's favorite Afro-pop songs of 2025.
The track leaked from across the continent and its diaspora that's shaping the season's sound. Curated by music writer Mancapro Conte, the spotlight landed on T, even though Blacko still sounds like he's juggling life's punches. Maya to be fine, left to right on the low. Maya says to us, yeah, Muhammad, thank you, Lord. But that's
Black Sharif, it's a small world, and after all, and apparently it's getting even smaller at Disney. The Magic Kingdom is making some not so magical cut as several hundred more employees face layoffs across the globe, from casting to corporate finance, and the House of Mouse is tightening its belt as it tries to keep up with the fast-changing industry.
Trimming staff from its film, TV, and finance departments, part of its ongoing shakeup as viewers ditch cable TV for streaming platforms instead. This comes after a major wave of cuts in 2023 when CEO Bob Iger asked about 7,000 jobs to save over $5 billion. So call it a sequel nobody asked for. Despite the layoffs, the Disney empire is still showing signs of box office strength. Its streaming service Disney Plus is bringing in more subscribers, and Lilo and Stitch just staged up a box office win, raking in over $610 million globally and breaking records over the Memorial Day weekend. Still, not all fairy tales have happy endings. The Snow White live-action remake stumbled following a flurry of bad reviews. So yes, Mickey's castle may be cracking a little under the pressure, but with hits like Lilo and Stitch, the magic isn't completely gone. For now, Disney's riding the roller coaster of reinvention just with fewer people on board.
My parents always said this forest was a magical place.
It is a wrap for the Showbiz segments with me, Jacqueline and Sama Yabua. Over to you, MFA.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And of course, it will be a wrap for the bulletin as well with me, MFA Akosiadati. There's more news if you do log on to myjoyonline.com, and please stay for Marketplace with Darryl Kwal. Thank you for watching.